Yeah, so I mean, so I'll just start by explaining what I think we're going to try to do
Mm.
in the next few minutes is try to answer for ourselves and for everyone who finds their way to Basecamp, sort of what is this space for, and how do we make it work for us? How do we use this space well and hold it well for ourselves and for one another? Um, and I'm not going to try to read out a script, but I think we'll just tease it out of each other.
Yeah, sure.
Is what we'll end up doing.
Okay.
Um, and so I guess where I start and kind of what is this for and why are we trying to hold this space. I think the reason that I feel we can almost broadly identify with is this sense of disconnection, of there being a kind of fundamental connection failure in society. And I look around at a lot of crises in the world, whether it is coronavirus, whether it is systemic racism, whether it is sort of ecological precipice that we are standing on. That at one of the roots of all of these is that there's just a lot of stuff that we aren't paying attention to that maybe we should be. That there's a lot of things that we aren't seeing, and then these crisis moments come, and they're like, aha, look at this, you should have been paying attention to this, and now you can't not.
Yeah.
And so I think that as we keep stumbling from one crisis to the other, it's like we do learn, but just slowly. That maybe what we need to do is step back and ask ourselves, okay, so what aren't we paying attention to? Um, what what aren't I seeing that maybe other people are noticing? And so if we could somehow get together in a space where we can pool our pieces of the puzzle,
Yeah.
maybe we could kind of put a fuller picture together.
There's a nice thought there, which is, in a way, what we're inviting people to do is to pay attention to what they're paying attention to. And so this is a
Love
space
that. Yeah.
to pay attention to what we're paying attention to instead of launching straight into what's immediately in front of us.
Yeah, I think that's right. One thing that we talked about in prepping this is this phrase that relationships are a kind of intelligence.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of what we mean, that the reality is that we do need to focus on something. And if I am an artist, I'm looking at all sorts of things in the world that the biologist maybe is not, or that the political scientist maybe is not. But if we can form meaningful connections with people who are really paying attention to different pieces and kind of
Yeah.
share those pieces with one another, then it feels like the complexity of the world that we need to be better at navigating, it becomes sort of concrete in one another
Yeah.
rather than this abstract study that we can never hope to accomplish.
Right, right. I think that in thinking about this and listening to you, I'm kind of reminded of a definition I once heard of intelligence, which I have no idea where it came from, but I've always rather liked it, which is that intelligence is that ability to see similarity in difference and difference in similarity. And so to be able to see patterns
Mm,
from complex data and
mm,
kind of bring things together, but also to be able to tease them apart and see where things are kind of where they vary. And I guess if that is a kind of interesting or workable definition, then it requires on both counts you to have difference in the conversation. Because if there's no
mm.
difference to bring together or no difference to tease apart, then there can't be any intelligence. And I suppose if we kind of double click into sort of intelligence inside of us, actually it's also about connection as well at a kind of neurophysiological level. It's all about connections and flows and synapses and patterns and stuff like that. So it's the kind of same thing going on within us and between us.
And it just seems to be that, like, when we give ourselves a chance to kind of explore that connective intelligence, um, and sort of put it on the table for one another, I think we quickly realize that we just have so much um, kind of like almost unused insight to offer one another.
Right.
These very simple things we do at the end, where okay, everybody take a few minutes and just capture what
Mm.
you don't want to get lost, and
Right.
then you look at these summaries afterwards, and it's as rich as any book that I've ever
Definitely.
purchased.
I think what calls to mind as well, and we'll get to this in a few minutes, is that for that kind of being together to be functional and additive rather than adversarial and combative, certain conditions need to be in play. So it doesn't just come with the territory of getting a bunch of people together. They have to come together in a particular way.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, and maybe, so we'll get to that pretty quickly. Maybe before we do, one thing that we were talking about and we realized from, running this experiment many times is that, I think that, coming together in this way, in this sort of space, is in principle open to everyone. So the who, I think, is everyone. But I think it's important to come to it with a little self-awareness about, is this the right time
Yeah.
in my journey to be a part of that conversation? Because
that's a really nice. That's a really nice way of thinking about it. That it's not for, as it were, all of the people all of the time, but it might be for all of the people some of the time. So the question then is, when's the time? And at what point do you need to circle back and find yourself in this kind of company? And I think that's also helpful to limit the scope. That we're not trying to do everything here. We're trying to do something quite particular. And there are, some of the people that come to Basecamp will spend much of their time on expeditions, pursuing their projects and working hard. And that's great. That's not happening in this space. But there will be a time when they need this space. And when is that time?
And I think a key of when that time is to think of, these cycles of certainty and doubt that we all go through. And it seems like, getting together with a diverse group of people around some fundamental questions is really productive and generative. If me coming to that circle believes that, look, we don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And so I'm fundamentally in a curious exploring mode at the moment. But also I come to it feeling like, and I don't have all the answers either.
Right.
So I need the kind of relationship intelligence of this space to maybe help me figure out, why is this thing I'm working on not working? What am I missing? What am I not paying attention to? On the other hand, if I'm convinced that I have the answer, Rob, okay, and then I think you're in testing mode. Then you should be, metaphorically, if this is Basecamp, you should be like out in the mountain, testing that trail.
Yeah.
Seeing if indeed you have found the answer.
Right.
And if for some reason you get stuck, if for some reason you turn around and you wonder, like, why isn't the whole world following me?
Mm-hmm.
I've got the answer. Then maybe it makes sense to come back to Basecamp with those kind of questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And explore them and say to people, look, this is what I've been doing. This is what I'm understanding. This is what I think we all need to do. Why doesn't everybody see it my way?
Mm-hmm.
I think is a good question to kind of have, a good stance to have. So I think we've learned that through successive attempts at bringing people together, that there's a time for all of us on the journey when this is particularly helpful.
And there's a demand there made on people. So in that last example where somebody has found that their idea is not working in the way they had hoped, or that people aren't lining up to follow them, there's the demand that's being made upon them is to really deeply question that, and to become aware of the assumptions and beliefs that they might be holding, that might be part of why it's not progressing in the way that they'd hoped. So to enter into this space, you'd need to be kind of really honest about the level of questioning you're willing to entertain around your idea, and that's not always easy. You might think that you're open-minded, but actually you're pretty convinced. So it kind of asks quite a lot of people in that respect.